Good morning, it's Ginge, and I wanted to start something new. Um, Not that I wanted to, actually. I more so feel guided to do so. And so here I am being a vibrational conduit for the collective consciousness so that we are able to raise our vibrations and we can step into the reality that we all desire to inhabit and live within and let go of those patterns that generations before us have clung onto. So here we are. Just to fill any of you in who aren't familiar with who this current being is in this flesh, I am Gingy Von Meyer, and I am a vibrational conduit. That being said, we are all vibrations. Everything that we see is a vibration. Our entire body is a vibration. We are actually 99.9% empty space, and the 0.01% that we see as flesh and bone and form is actually perception that our 3D eyes help us form. But in other realms past these 3D eyes, we can see past that, and there's so much more potential that we haven't yet grasped or realized that we're able to play with more. So I have some music playing in the background. It was getting a little too loud. It was distracting me because it's beautiful. Another fun part about being a vibrational conduit is having streams of consciousness coming and flowing through me on a continual basis. In the past, I found that quite frustrating because I had all these ideas coming through to me, and I would grab hold to as many as I can hold and cling on to them. And it's like, okay, I'm going to make all these happen. And I came to realize this summer that what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing? So in my personal story, what is the most important thing to me? And when I'm talking about this, what's the most important thing to you? Have that question in your mind. You don't have to answer it immediately, but you can answer it through the meditative question on your mind throughout time. So I had come to a point this summer where the best way to visually put it, I had 100 baskets and one egg in each of the baskets. And I was working tirelessly to fulfill the needs and warming up all of those eggs that needed incubating so that they could live and crack through that shell and break through and enter into this reality as a new idea or a new concept or an innovation of sorts. And I came to the point where I realized that holding on to each one of these baskets and each one of these eggs inside of these baskets and spreading myself so thin that I wasn't fulfilling what was most important to me. And my ego had gotten the best of me. And the ego is a funny thing, and we can get into that a little later, or maybe through several other videos in the future. And I had this huge ego experience where I had innovated a past project of mine, and it was very successful. And throughout the process of innovating a former project and giving it new life, I realized that whatever I put my passion towards, whatever I put my desire towards, wherever I put my energy, that would be fully supported by the universe, and that I would always be supported and guided through that process. And through innovating that project and bringing it new life, I did see all the support that came through with the universe in so many layers. And stepping away from that and thinking or questioning, why did I choose that to be the most important thing to me at that time? And what came to mind was um, acceptance and worthiness for me. I have been in the hair industry for over 12 years, and it is a career that I've dreamed of being in since I was 5 years old. I specifically remember in kindergarten, um, when we're about to graduate, we're making these boxes that we're going to open when we're graduating from 12th grade. And on a sheet of paper, there's a couple questions. And one of those questions was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I put that I wanted to be a hairdresser. And I remember throughout my career in school, in public school, I was continually told by my teachers that I couldn't be a hairdresser and that I needed to go to college first. And being a stubborn, defiant, sweet young girl, that solidified it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper for me to want and need to be a hairdresser, because at that time, the being I was, if you told me I wasn't allowed to do something and I didn't see anything wrong with it and I wasn't hurting anybody, then it made me want to do it more. Um, so coming to the realization that reinventing or reviving this project that was under the name No Rest to Success, names are important. No Rest to Success. Again, I had pigeonholed and spiraled into this trap I had created for myself to overwork and overexert myself to find success. And you don't need to do that. Success, meaningful success, is effortless. And I am so grateful to have figured out that process through questioning things and by making myself uncomfortable. So I wanted to feel worthy. I wanted to feel accepted by my industry because um, there's so many reasons. One of the main reasons was I had to take a step back, and that step back was because I was in a very severe car accident that left me with severe spinal injury that I've been dealing with since, and more quiet about my personal life on the social medias, and stepped away. And many people didn't know why I was stepping away, because I had dedicated maybe around 4 years passionately into the education realm of hairdressing and educating myself. And then once I felt educated enough, spreading that education to the community of Las Vegas by throwing these wonderful events, which is so empowering on so many different layers. But I couldn't do it anymore because anyone that has experienced immense pain, whether that be physically or emotionally or mentally, you know that it takes so much energy from you, and you're living in a new realm or a new dimension within that frame of being and frame of mind. And I was exhausted and I was struggling. I was struggling just through every day, physically with the pain. And then it just destroyed my mental mind because I didn't feel worthy um, of enjoying life. I didn't feel worthy of success. I didn't feel worthy of love. I didn't feel worthy of friendship. I didn't feel worthy of my family. I didn't feel worthy of so many things. And um, so getting into this again, I was searching for that acceptance and that worthiness from my former peers in that industry. And also seeing within that it was fluffing and incubating my own ego and the need for worthiness, the need for acceptance. And the funny thing is none of us need to be accepted. None of us need to feel worthy because we innately are already all of that. We don't need it from any outside source. All we need to do is see and feel that light within us. And as we feel and see that light within us, we don't need to camouflage through, in my case, overproducing, um, whether that be events or art or God knows what else, just producing something. And I'm so grateful to be able to have had that time of introspection to see truly who I had been in the past, who I had been holding on to, and as I was also concentrating on becoming egoless, I was developing um, more and more egos in so many different layers and so many different aspects. And so in June, after that event, one of my dear friends, Julie, had sent me um, a link to a podcast that she had listened to. And Julie and I are on this beautiful cosmic wave together and very intuitive with sharing with each other the information that we need at that time for our consciousness to expand or to alleviate whatever it needs to alleviate. And so it took me about 2 days, and on like the day or two after she had sent it to me, I had taken a bath and decided to put on this podcast. And as I'm listening to it, this woman who is a yoga teacher is talking through her story of overproducing and her need to produce, and her need for doing it is for the greatest good for humanity. And as she's doing it, she's getting sick and she's getting sick and she's getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So she goes and sees one of her homeopathic energetic doctors, and he asks her this question: why do you feel the need? What is the importance behind all of this production that you are doing? Why do you feel the need to overproduce? And that was like a huge aha moment for me. Why do I feel like I have to overproduce? And that just hit me. And then right after that hit me, then this other thought came, um, like a flutter of butterflies, like when you fall in love at first sight. And that flutter of butterflies came into my heart and came into my stomach and said, or impressed upon me, that I needed to take time to do nothing. I needed to step away from everything that I could, and I needed to do nothing. Because when I did nothing, that is the scariest place for me. Because when you do nothing, then all the dust settles and you get to see things as they are instead of camouflaging them or making yourself too busy to see the reality of why you are confusing yourself or why you are delaying yourself from healing from so many aspects of yourself. This is my own reality, and I'm sharing it with you as I know that others are also going through similar processes. So in July and most of August, I sat still, and it was like having a scab that was festering and you just really wanted to pick at it, to release that fester. And then as you picked at it more and more, if you did, then it would get infected. Or you could have that scab, and that scab could continue to shrink, and it could just be irritating as it's shrinking into this new skin, and it's uncomfortable, but you leave it alone and you let it become new skin. That's what I ended up doing. Is I'm typically a picker, and I know this about myself on so many different layers. And so I was able to sit and meditate and be quiet and be still, even though I had 1,000 things on my to-do list, I let all of those go, and it was so scary to let all of those things go. It was right after I had held the event called Strand'Ed, the reinvention of neuro success. And I had videos to edit, I had photos to edit, I had social medias to post, I had things to write, I had sponsorships to give out to people to try to build this and have it be supported monetarily through companies that are looking for influencers of sorts or people that are innovating the playing field. And I had to let all of that go, even though I saw all of this beautiful success that could come from this. I let it all go because what was most important to me? What is the most important thing to me? The most important thing to me that I've realized is my own consciousness and feeling at peace with me, feeling at peace with life, feeling at peace with all the different realms that we walk in, feeling at peace. And to heal. That was the most important thing, was to heal, because there was so much I needed to heal from. A lifetime of healing, especially living in this immense amount of pain that I am now in, healing from that every moment and not attaching myself to those feelings or those experiences and just allowing them to be. Just be, just be. Don't judge them, don't attach anything to them, just be. And as I sat quiet, as I sat incredibly uncomfortable, trying to rip out of my very own skin, as I settled back into just being, I found what was missing all along. And what was missing all along was me. Who I am, who I've always been since I was a child. And through circumstances and through relationships, I lost sight and lost that seed of me, who I am, who I am. Some of the most powerful words to speak to yourself out loud to change your consciousness. I am. I am. I am. I am. What I realized is that I am unconditional love. This being and this energy and these vibrations, the frequencies that make up who this being is that you see on the screen, is unconditional love. I always have been. And it's taken me a journey back to myself to see that and to cultivate that and nurture that once more. As a plant, if you neglect it and you forget to water it, it will dry out and it will hang on every limb to survive. And then when you take notice of the neglect that you gave it, you start watering and nurturing it again, and then it thrives and it lives so beautifully and effortlessly. You don't need to tell a plant what to do. It knows exactly what to do. It knows exactly how to photosynthesize. It knows exactly how to produce energy and send all of that energy where it needs to go, and send it down to the roots, down to the mycelium that's within the ground, and send communications within the ground to other plants nearby. Plants are a magnificent representation of the effortless flow of beingness. And as humans, we, for some reason, through generations, have thought that if we complicate this, beingness, then we could live more elaborately. Or I'm not quite sure, honestly. Um, but we've complicated our lives so much that we are unable to simplify and live in this beautiful, effortless flow that all other living beings live in. Plants being a beautiful representation of that. If you plant a seed for a flower and it doesn't pop out of the ground when you have expected, and then seasons go and winter comes, and then spring comes again, all of a sudden this beautiful flower pops out of the ground in its own timing. We can't time these things out. And practicing non attachment and non judgment in our lives is vitally important for us to step into this beautiful, effortless flow. So here I am. I've learned so much over this current lifespan that I'm in, and I feel impressed to vibrationally share it and speak it out loud. There are parts of me that feel very vulnerable to this and uncomfortable, but stepping into the uncomfortable is where we grow. With that being said, something that has been a really beautiful lesson lately is destruction. And before we speak about destruction, I'm going to plug my computer in because I forgot to do that already, or else this video is going to be destructed. All right, so destruction. I was living in a life where I was clinging on to things. I was living in a state of lack, and I was holding on to this, and I was holding on to that, and I was grabbing onto this to fill a void, and I was holding on to this, putting it here because there were so many voids and so many empty spaces I was trying to feel within my soul and within my being. And so that could be shown very easily through our society, through consumerism. I definitely partook of consumerism. Um, and even though most of my consumerism that I was doing was through thrifting, it still is consumerism, even if you are, exchanging goods. And, one of the things that I personally was continually grabbing onto were clothes, fabrics. When I was younger, lived a beautiful life. There was definitely struggle when we moved to Las Vegas. We moved to Las Vegas from San Jose when I was 5 because my father was suicidal and my mother wanted to have some support, and so she moved to Las Vegas where she had 2 sisters with their families. So when we moved here, several things happened. My father was still suffering from major depression. And at some point he got in with this MLM and was very successful with them. And then one day all of a sudden these men disappeared with everyone's money. And that included all of my father's money that he had invested and put into this company. And so my family had nothing. My mom was a stay-at-home mom at that time. And my father was already suffering from depression and camouflaging it through the success of being successful in this MLM that was doing well. And so then he fell even deeper into a depression as he was a father of 5 children and the provider for our entire family. And we had nothing. And thank the Lord, thank the universe, thank Source and Creator that we we're part of the Mormon religion. And part of the Mormon religion is concentrating on taking care of your tribe, taking care of your communities. And we were able to be fed by the storehouses that the Mormons keep, so that they brought us food so that we could eat. And my family, my cousins, whenever they would grow out of things, we would get these large black trash bags of their old clothes. So we never really had new clothes. And if we did, back in the day, we would shop in Target, which was super lame because it wasn't cool then, at least in my childlike mind. So I always had hand-me-downs, and I was the youngest of three girls in my particular family, let alone all of the older girl cousins that I had. And so everything I had was already worn and used looking. And so I had always been someone that was an individual, and that stems from my understanding from being the only redhead in my family. The rest of my family, in my opinion, look like Persian gods and goddesses, and then there's this weirdo redhead, and it immediately, I just always felt different. I always felt quirky and weird and misunderstood. And so as I had all of these old clothes from everyone else, and I still wanted to have my own identity when all of their energy was in this, all of these threads, I cultivated a really weird sense of style. And that became part of my layer of egos, to identify with who I am internally, just someone that is different. And so I threaded and clothed myself to also represent that. But it got out of hand because through all of my life, I just held on to like particular articles of clothing, so much so that I still had, up until a couple of years ago, a jean jacket I had since junior high school. And coming into a space now where I understand that you have to create empty space, you have to provide empty space if you can't create it. Provide empty space to allow creation to come in and to create new form and new manifestations. And so, in the reality that I'm living in now, I've gone from being married and having a beautiful home to living with partners in their homes, living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with my son and I, to now living with my family and renting a room from them, and seeing this trickle down of, let's say, I had this perception of comfort into diving deep down into my most uncomfortable feels, which is living with my family, which as an adult and a parent, many of you can understand where that uncomfortability comes, especially in my own story, the uncomfortability of being my individual self, someone that is a plant advocate for medicine, so that being especially cannabis, and my family still being beautiful practicers of Mormonism, they don't align with a lot of my personal philosophies of life. And so coming with that, as well as coming to head with some of the healing that we also needed to do, we have been able to heal and come together and accept each other for exactly who we are. So all of this had to happen for the space to be created so that things could come back together and create new form that is more positive. Whereas before, if I was still in my comfortableness and I'm still in my ego-ness, then coming to where my family is, it was always so hard to understand each other because I wasn't willing to bend my perception, and my perception, weren't able to bend into my perception. And so there's always this, as magnets, and you have your positive and your negative side, when you put two of the same poles together, they reject each other. There's a forceful pull against each other instead of getting together. And so this is me going through the experiences of like, I'm falling and letting go of so many egos and so many attachments and so many judgments. I was able to finally release myself of all these perceptions I was living in of unacceptance and unworthiness, and stepping into a realm of what is anything, and now understanding that we are one. Everything is one. Everything is one. And anytime something isn't one, it's because you are magnetizing in another form where you are pulling yourself away. And sometimes that is necessary. I am so grateful for the opportunity to have been able to play with consciousness and play with the reality that we live in, and to figure out for myself what my dharma is. And my dharma is to spread unconditional love. And through spreading that unconditional love, we are able to raise the vibration of the collective consciousness so that we can all start elevating that vibration. And as we, as a collective consciousness, as human beings living on this planet, raise our vibrations, we're also allowing the vibrations of Mother Earth to rise with us. So we can start shifting through different dimensionalities and realities and come into what many people may know of as the second coming of Christ, which is a second coming of a new consciousness, raising from three-dimensional consciousness into five-dimensional consciousness, and the acceptance and the love and the unity that comes with that. Now, with my experience at this point in time, is a lot of us are in this fourth dimensional beingness, where many people use the phrase the rainbow bridge, and the fourth dimensional consciousness is coming from the 3D world and walking across and experiencing the things that you need to experience to move over to the five-dimensional realities. And as we're on this rainbow bridge, we're going back and forth in between both realms of the past collective consciousness of lack into the new state of consciousness of beingness and unity and abundance. And when you're in that middle ground, it's really interesting because you keep going back and forth. You go back to a state of lack to learn a new lesson, and then you go over to the five-dimensional realities of abundance. And if you were still not accepting of having this abundance 100% of the time, then you go back over to four-dimensional and you learn another lesson in three-dimensional to then move back into five-dimensional to hopefully stay there. And if you don't, then that pattern keeps happening. And I saw that pattern happening in my life so many times. It's still happening, honestly. And this is part of the intuitive talks, is to help myself move out of that and help us as a collective also move out of that through our vulnerability of opening up and speaking our truths. Now, that being said, I am also an experimenter. I have always been an experimenter. I always question things in a way that people don't even know how to answer, which was so frustrating when I was younger, and so frustrating when I was in classes with people, to the point where I would just keep to myself and write it down, like, start questioning my own things and try to figure it out. Realizing most people didn't know how to handle that. And that's totally okay, because this is just the weirdo that I am. So with that being said, dipping into so many different philosophies and so many different concepts, and coming to the understanding that everything is nothing and nothing is everything. So whatever you want to believe, whatever you want to perceive is your reality. So you'll notice throughout this process that I made dip into different philosophies or different realities or different thoughts or questions, because I am navigating what I want to intentionally put my attention on to manifest into this realm that I live in. And it's really fascinating. So, after sitting still for July and August, I have been slowly gliding into my reality, and I've been working on a couple different things, and all of them fill my heart and my soul with passion. And there's been this conceptual idea that has been with me for quite some time. And after experiencing Life is Beautiful this year, just like so much information coming into me and so many different downloads coming into this being through the collective consciousness and through experimenting with the interactions with hundreds of thousands of people, even just walking in large amount of crowds and feeling that energy of the collective consciousness and feeling the different energy in different spaces, as well as feeling the energy from different days in that bubble. It just was so enlightening. And what I came away with is, what is the most important thing to me? The most important thing to me is spreading unconditional love, and through that, raising the vibration of the collective consciousness. Now, how can I manifest with unconditional love? Can I manifest where I'm passionate about with unconditional love to heal the earth and to help in whatever way possible to regenerate a healthy ecosystem that we have diminished with the technologies that former generations came up with and that we have subscribed to? It is time for us to unsubscribe to those technologies that they created, and it's time for us to innovate technologies so that we are able to heal not only ourselves but the earth. All of these vibrations that are going through us, all of the radio waves, you have to think, me even using my computer right now and using Wi-Fi, all of these things we cannot see, but they are affecting our vibrational systems. We are all vibrations. Everything is vibrations. And when you have these things going through you, you're changing the molecular structure of all of it. How can we innovate this space? How can we develop and innovate new technologies so that we are able to keep our bodies healthy and evolving in a beautiful way, as well as helping the earth? How can I do that with unconditional love? How can I spread consciousness with unconditional love? And all of these questions have come, and all of the answers are now here. And the answers are here, and now I have to make myself uncomfortable, not only through opening up and making these videos, but also by talking and aligning myself with the people that I need to get these things into motion. Because I, being an open vibrational conduit to unconditional love and to the collective consciousness, the right information is now coming to me, and I'm able now to grab onto the information and the ideas that I know that I am a vibrational match to at this point in time. So that being said, I'm so excited for this journey that I am going to put under the name of the opus. As the opus, this is my opus. Composing the most magnificent life, composing the most magnificent reality, composing the most magnificent symphony within life. Life is art, and we can let life come through us we don't have to let life happen to us. And that's a beautiful thing to realize. So, as I am now on this journey with the Opus, I want to invite you to come with me. And as you come with me, you're coming with us, honestly, because I am you and you are me, and we are tools for each other to learn from each other continually. And I'm so grateful for that. Something that came to mind yesterday was, you know, through heartbreak in my own story, through heartbreak, I realized each time my heart broke, it cracked open. And as it cracked open, it revealed this beautiful treasure each and every time. And each and every time that treasure, that story was that my love is unconditional. And sometimes I didn't know how to handle that. And sometimes other people didn't know how to handle that either. And I'm still learning. And I desire to continue to learn vulnerably with you. Life is beautiful. Life is magnificent. You are surrounded by so much support and love. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your time. I sincerely appreciate you. And I'm sending so much love and light to each and every one of you that is watching this at this time or watching it in the future or past, whatever it may be. Remember to stay present in the now. As you stay present in the now, you live in the most magnificent space. Thank you so much. Also, everything that I am putting out, there is a vibrational frequency that I'm also putting out with it that is all full of healing, love, and light and unconditional love. So even these videos alone are radiating with unconditional love and support for each and every one of us. I love you all. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you, thank you, thank you.